All right, everybody, it's Sunday, and of course that means Cutlass Day, which I've been down here already for a good bit today, getting caught back up on the other half of the frame rail that I didn't finish last weekend. But you can see we've got some more shiny bits going on over there in that corner. And I tell you what, it's been a week. Hopefully you guys saw that we got the burnout car fired back up with its new engine, and I dynoed it last night, and I know that this video will come out before that. So if you want to see what the burnout car does on the dyno at 9,000 plus RPM, I actually turned it 9,100, a little spoiler alert for the video. But go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that you will see when we get a video that comes out. Actually subscribe and then click the bell notification, which lets you be notified whenever we release a video. You'll get a notification on your phone. I think that's the main way they do it, but maybe email too. I don't know. I'm subscribed to so many channels. I get so many emails from YouTube. Anyways, I'm already talking too much because I got work to get done. So let's get through the intro and get to it. All right, so thanks for tuning in, and a big thanks to everybody that's been buying merch here lately. I haven't been mentioning it enough, and I know people like say, oh, you shouldn't mention all that other stuff. Well, when I mention it, it seems like more people buy stuff, and that's a big help for us continuing to bring this extra footage in, or this extra content for you guys. So if you want to go buy some merch, win with KSR. Big thanks to everybody that already has, and also to those who have been calling us to buy parts for your projects. We think it's cool to be involved in so many people's projects, and like I said, if you need some parts for your project, give us a call or go check out the website. You never know what you might find on there, and we can get you just about anything you may need for your project. But enough of all that. So just like we had done last week, oh, can't show that yet. We got this side cleaned up. Got a little bit of extra weld around that, cleaned the welds up, made everything all pretty there. Got all the oil and grease off of it, which for some reason this side was way more oily than the other side. Maybe just the engine slings the oil over to this side, but it's kind of hard to tell in there. But this thing was smoking and all kinds of mess. Caught on fire a few times inside the frame while I was welding up some of the other pieces. But we've at least caught this side up to what we had done on the passenger side. And then on the passenger side, I got a little ahead of myself, and I started welding in the TRZ upper coilover shock mount kit. Now, normally when you buy these from TRZ, they come with the shock tabs already on them, and there's an arm that comes over from the top that the shock bolt actually goes through also, but it comes over and ties onto the original part of the frame that used to be there. Well, I don't have that bit of frame left, so I asked my buddies down there at TRZ if I could get the parts in raw form, and I did. So they sent them to me just in a bag. Actually, yeah, I can show you the pieces how they normally would have been. There's the upper shock bolts. McMaster-Carr's my bag. There's the long arms that are usually there. And actually what I'm going to do is call and get them to send me 2 more of these, because normally, let's see if we can do this one-handed. So normally there's one of these that goes out, like I said, to the stock part of the frame that goes there. And then this goes there on the other side. Well, we're just going to use 2 of these because that'll be plenty enough to carry the load that the coilover shock is going to put into the frame. So, doing things a little bit custom, kind of the theme of this project. You know, we're using an Oldsmobile engine, kind of custom making every bit of the roll. Ooh, dropped my phone. Using every bit of the roll cage, custom bent. I'm gonna be chopping out the firewall here before too much longer to, you know, get it spliced back in with one that's not so rusty. And it's sitting in the back of the shop. You know what? Maybe when we have the Nova blasted, I'll take that firewall over there too, and they can blast all the paint off of it, so that I'm working with nice clean metal before I even cut this out. Something to think about, because the Nova hopefully is going to be going to the dustless blasting guys right after LS Fest, which is coming up next weekend. So, what are we going to do today? I think first thing I'll do is weld this in on the other side. So we'll have that go in there. And it has to be, you can see how the edge is different. So you can see where I have to trim back the edge. You can see that where it curves over like it does on this side. Well, we got to go in and kind of trim that back to like the vertical edge. And then it'll tuck under this edge just a little bit and give me a spot to go ahead and weld all of that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is get the laser out. And I'm going to set the laser up square to the center line of the chassis and give myself a mark, which I tried to get a little bit of a mark right there, but I'm going to give myself a mark and come in here and slice off the end of the frame rails to where they are perfectly straight. And then we will box that in, and I may go ahead and do a hoop that goes around for out in front of the engine. Hopefully I've been focused there. I've messed up a setting in my phone and it wasn't focusing on me. Maybe I'm not in focus right now. I'll know when I go to edit. But anyways, let's get to work on this thing, because I'm already tired and I'm supposed to go out to dinner with my girlfriend tonight. So I got to get to getting. Here we go. All right, so one thing that came into my mind while I was doing the editing is that I thought I should clarify that you do not have to cut your frame nearly as much as I did to install these TRZ upper control arm or upper shock mounts in the front of your G-body. In some other cars that we've done these in, which I didn't take any video or pictures of, but you can just kind of cut out that upper spring pocket so that the coilover shock can, you know, kind of pass through the stock frame, instead of it being where the shock originally mounted with the stud on top of it. And the stud on top deal does still work. I mean, there are people that still use those, but having the coilover completely self-contained is so much nicer, because you can crank your preload into the spring and then you can install it or take it off the car with the preload installed, and you don't have to completely reset that every time you go to change the shock. And for those of you G-body guys that have messed with the kind of setup I'm talking about, where it uses the stock top and either a conical spring or TRZ's old adapter that used a 2.5-inch spring on the top side mount, you know what I'm talking about, because it was a giant pain to always have to be cranking on the spring adjuster once you either removed or installed the shock. But anyway, let's get this foundation piece welded in, and then we'll get back to some real-time talk here in just a second. Well, you can definitely see I have made a big old giant mess. And I forgot to mention before on the other side, but you can see I cut out the inside of the frame pocket there. And that's the kind of stuff that really eats up the time. It's not so much the cutting the stuff off. Like if I had just, you know, come through and cut off where this the original cross member was and just left all of it, that'd have been probably an hour, hour and a half. But to get it finished super nice like that, where it looks like, you know, it never had any piece of that stock frame on there to begin with, that's the part that really soaks up the time. And is it necessary? No, not at all. But do I like that I did it and that it looks awesome? Yep, sure do. I do think I'm going to cut like that lip off right there where it kind of sticks out. You can see I even drew out kind of a window. It kind of looks maybe like it would be factory. This side's real pronounced where it sticks out. And reason for that is just when you're working, hey, that's still warm, by the way. The reason for that is that if you're working on the car, you know, and you're in here and you got your hands or your wrists and you know, you've got a sharp edge there, like say you're, I don't know, taking something loose under there, something to do with the steering or something that's coming through there. But the more you can eliminate sharp points while you're building your car, the more you're going to enjoy working on it down the road in the future, because you're not going to have your arms and your hands and stuff get all scratched up. Same with cutting your zip ties off with flush cuts, where you don't leave that really sharp little tip on them. Woo, I can't tell you how many scars I have on my hands from somebody else's project that did not have the zip ties cut off properly. But anyway, I'm rambling. Time to go get the laser, see if we can square these things off, cap the ends of the frame rails. And I think I'm going to also, like I've already purchased it, but I purchased some 50 thousandths chromoly, and I think I'm gonna bend a piece that fills in there, which I may end up trimming this off, maybe even trimming this back where it's flat, just so I end up with a nice curve. Just to seal that off, so when you're leaning over the fender looking at the car and looking, you know, down at the shock area, it just looks finished in there instead of like we completely sawed off the end of the frame. Even though that is what we did, we want to make it look nice. So anyways, time for me to shut up and get back to work. Here we go. All right, so right after I started this time lapse, I remembered that the chassis was not level anymore sitting on the lift. So I have to go get the transmission jack from across the shop and pick up the back of the car, adjust the feet. I had some wood blocks in between the lift and the frame of the car because I was lifting it up when I was installing the lower torque boxes that that replace all the factory lower control arm mounting holes. So when I was working on that, I ended up moving and unleveling the car on the lift. So had to go back in and get that sitting back level again, so that when I set the laser on, because the laser has an auto level feature, so I know the vertical line that the laser is putting out is now perpendicular to the chassis instead of the chassis being angled. Now, would it really have made a difference if the chassis was angled 1.5 degrees, or that cut line was angled 1.5 degrees on the front of the chassis? No, not particularly. But square is square. So I figured if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it right. And I think it's going to work out where the motor plate will bolt to the front of where I've cut this frame here, like measuring how long the engine is. I think it's going to work out, which we'll have to see more once we get the engine mocked up into the car, which hopefully will be in one of the pretty soon upcoming videos, just because that'll be nice to have that taken care of, because that's a big step to getting that in place. And I'm doing a little bit of extra cutting now on the front of the frame, like I did mention, cutting off some of the curved sections so that the frame rail would kind of be straight, just to completely get rid of where the original frame went out around the big, huge 5-inch diameter coil springs. So the old manila envelope method, transfer that into a piece of metal, bring the piece of metal back, touch it up on the, touch it up where it kind of need a little bit of extra fitment on it, and then start tacking and welding it in. And the goal is for it to be a completely seamless transition and you not even be able to tell that this was cut out and welded back in, which here in just a second, when we go back real time, you'll see that I think I did a pretty good job achieving that. So just 3 more of those pieces to make, and then the front caps, and we'll be done. All right, well, as usual, that took longer than I thought it was gonna, but you can kind of see what I was going for there with the 2 frame rails. They are pretty close, and one of the reasons that it took quite a bit longer is I needed to re-level the chassis, because when I was putting the Marilat lower torque boxes in right there, those dudes right there, oh, blurry, okay, not blurry, I had lifted up the back of the chassis on the lift so that I could get in and weld around everything that I needed to weld around. Well, now that those are welded in, you needed to lower that back down, and then it was crooked a little bit this way too. Not sure exactly why, maybe just because of where the feet ended up on the frame. But got this dude welded in, which I can't remember if I had done that before the last time lapse ended or not, because I'm tired. And it is pushing 8 o'clock. Time for me to get on out of here. I gotta get home, get ready for dinner. But you can kind of see what I'm going for with cleaning up the frame rails. Still need just to fill in those 2 low spots right there just a little bit. But I wanted to, wow. It just looked weird with it kind of right there at the very end. So just slicing that off to finish where we cut off the original frame rail there. And like I mentioned before, it's this little tedious stuff that just eats up the hours. And I mean, eats them up. I had planned to be done with that today, the plating, this plating, maybe even bend a hoop out and around. But then I did get to thinking about that, and I'm like, you know what, I should probably put the fenders on it so I could see just how far forward that can come, so that if I do one bar kind of down, like a U-bar, say it starts here, goes down, around, and then back up to there, ideally, I could make it where the radiator sits right on that bar. But to place the radiator, I need to know how far the front end is coming. So I'm gonna go up there in the roof. My storage area for Cutlass parts is kind of behind the old 300ZX road race car that I need to dig down. Never even raced that car, but I've got it. It's a body in white, original, only been a race car its whole life. Probably has like 2,000 miles on it, maybe a little more. But I have another road race version of one of those that you guys haven't seen yet. Need to dig it out, take it out to the road course track with the Lexus, and maybe we can go have us a fun day out of the racetrack. But like I mentioned earlier in the video, the next video will be the SC300 burnout car on the dyno, 9,000 plus RPM out of the new 369 cubic inch engine, and it made way more power than I was hoping it would. So awesome results there. Super excited about that. LS Fest next weekend, actually a week from now, I'll be at LS Fest. Hope to see you guys there. And that's gonna do it for this video. Little bits here and there. We are making progress. I know it's taking a little while, but it's getting there, little bit by little bit. So thank you again for watching. We'll see you guys next time.